That bread you trust the most is often the one lying to you the hardest, because bread feels innocent. You don't question it. You walk in, smell something warm, see wooden shelves and handwritten signs, and your brain decides it's safe before you've even paid. Bread is supposed to be simple: flour, water, time, nothing suspicious. But here's the uncomfortable reality. A lot of bread shops are selling an image, not a loaf. Dough arrives frozen. Additives do the work instead of skill. Freshly baked sometimes means reheated, rushed, or propped up by ingredients you'd never expect in something marketed as traditional. And because bread doesn't feel dangerous, corners get cut quietly. That matters because you eat bread constantly, not as a treat, as a default. Toast in the morning, sandwiches at lunch, something quick when you're tired. When something that ordinary is compromised, it doesn't cause outrage, it just becomes normal. In this video, we're exposing 8 bread shops you should seriously think twice about, the shortcuts hiding behind rustic branding, and the red flags you can spot once you know what to look for. And at the end, I'll show you 3 bread shops that actually do it right. No fake artisan language, no tricks, just real bread. So before you trust the smell and the story again, let's see what's really coming out of the oven. Number 8, Greggs. Greggs feels untouchable. It's cheap, familiar, and everywhere. You don't choose Greggs, you pass it, smell it, and end up inside. That routine is exactly why people stop asking questions. Greggs operates on massive volume. Items are baked on site, then held in warming displays for hours, while foot traffic never stops. Sausage rolls, bakes, pizzas, pastries, all moving constantly, all relying on timing and temperature to stay safe. That's where cracks form. Over the years, individual Greggs locations have received hygiene warnings for issues like improper food handling, cleanliness lapses, and temperature control failures, not dramatic scandals, quiet reports. The kind that never reach customers because nothing feels obviously wrong. And that's the danger. Bread and pastry don't trigger alarm bells. If something tastes a little dry or slightly off, you shrug and keep moving. When food is cheap and fast, expectations drop. Shortcuts hide easily. Staff are under pressure. Rushes are relentless. Displays are kept full because empty shelves look bad. Food sits longer than it should because waste hurts margins. One missed timer doesn't feel serious until it stacks up. Greggs isn't unsafe because it's chaotic. It's unsafe because it's routine. When something becomes automatic, vigilance fades. Systems replace attention. Habits replace judgment. Most customers never see the back rooms, storage areas, or prep routines. They see warm lights and full trays. The brand does the reassuring for them. Greggs survives on trust built through repetition. Millions of visits train people to assume everything is fine. That comfort is powerful because it replaces curiosity with habit and convinces you nothing needs checking, questioning, or slowing down, even when systems are strained daily and small mistakes quietly become normal. And if number 8 shows how familiarity lowers your guard, number 7 is worse, because it hides behind the illusion of craftsmanship. This next one looks handmade, comforting, and completely safe inside. Number 7, Pret-a-Manger. Pret feels responsible. Clean fonts, calm colors, words like natural and fresh everywhere. You walk in already relaxed, assuming the thinking has been done for you. That confidence is dangerous. Pret runs on speed disguised as care. Food is prepared early, assembled fast, and displayed openly for hours. Shelves look abundant, but abundance requires constant handling, timing, and rotation to stay safe. Pret's history with allergen failures exposed how fragile that system can be. Lives were lost, investigations followed, promises were made, but the pressure to move fast never disappeared. When queues build and shelves empty, rules bend. Items stay out longer. Labels get trusted instead of checked. Staff juggle pace, presentation, and safety at the same time. What makes Pret unsettling is how little caution customers use. People with allergies relax. Parents grab food quickly. Health-focused branding lowers vigilance instead of raising it. Fresh food isn't safer by default. Open displays, repeated handling, and time exposure increase risk when execution slips. One missed step can matter. Pret doesn't feel risky, which is exactly the risk. The brand absorbs doubt and replaces it with reassurance. That trust is reinforced daily by repetition, convenience, and the belief that a popular brand must be tightly controlled. But popularity doesn't prevent errors, it hides them. The busier the store, the easier it is for small failures to disappear unnoticed, absorbed into the rush and normalized. And if number 7 proves how image can override caution, number 6 gets even bolder because it claims freshness outright. That promise feels comforting, but comfort is not protection, especially when speed, scale, and branding are doing most of the work behind the counter every single day without pause or margin for error. Next, the illusion shifts from clean eating to something far more familiar and automatic, and that makes it harder to notice until something finally goes wrong badly. Number 6, Subway. Subway gets treated like a sandwich shop, But it's also one of the biggest bread sellers in the country, and that's where the illusion starts. Because when you think bread shop, you picture flour, ovens, and skill. Subway sells you something else entirely: convenience disguised as freshness. Subway bread is engineered, not crafted. Dough arrives pre-formulated, designed to rise fast, bake fast, and stay soft far longer than traditional bread should. That softness people love. It's not a sign of quality, it's a sign of processing. The bread is built to survive volume, not tradition. And then there's the environment it's baked and handled in. Subway stores are high-speed assembly lines. Lunch rushes hit hard, lines build fast, staff move quickly. Bread sits out, gets handled repeatedly, and is sliced and filled non-stop. Hygiene depends entirely on perfect routines under pressure, which is rarely how real kitchens operate. Subway has repeatedly faced scrutiny over what actually goes into its bread, including additives and ingredients that blur the line between bread and processed product. That doesn't make it illegal, but it does make it misleading when the brand leans so heavily on the idea of fresh. The bigger issue is perception. People trust Subway bread because they see it, they smell it. They assume baking in store equals authenticity, but baking something on site doesn't automatically make it good or even traditional. This isn't bread made slowly by bakers, it's bread made efficiently by systems. And systems don't care about texture, digestion, or simplicity. They care about consistency and cost. Subway isn't pretending to be a bakery, but many people treat it like one. And that misunderstanding is exactly how ultra-processed bread slips into daily routines without question. If number 6 shows how branding can redefine what bread even means, number 5 is worse, because it looks like a bakery while quietly operating like a factory. Number 5, supermarket in-store bakeries. Supermarket bakeries are masters of illusion. You see ovens, you smell bread, you watch trays slide out in neat rows. It feels fresh, local, and comforting, like real baking is happening right in front of you. But in most cases, what you're seeing is the final step of a much longer, much less romantic process. Most supermarket bakeries don't make bread from scratch. Dough arrives frozen or part-baked from industrial facilities, sometimes hundreds of miles away. It's designed to be foolproof. Thaw, bake, display. The skill isn't baking, it's timing. That matters because frozen dough relies heavily on additives and processing aids to survive transport, storage, and rapid baking. Those ingredients don't make the bread unsafe, but they do make it far removed from the simple product people imagine when they hear bakery. Then there's handling. Supermarket bakeries are busy, understaffed, and open all day. Bread sits uncovered. Customers touch it. Staff rush to refill displays. Hygiene depends on constant vigilance in an environment built for speed, not care. And because the bread is cheap, expectations drop. If it's dry, you shrug. If it goes stale fast, you accept it. Low prices quietly excuse low standards. The smell is pumped out on purpose. Placement near entrances is deliberate. It's all designed to trigger trust before you ask questions. Supermarket bakeries aren't evil. They're efficient, but efficiency isn't the same as quality. And it definitely isn't the same as craftsmanship. They sell comfort, not tradition, atmosphere, not baking. And if number 5 shows how easy it is to confuse theatre with skill, number 4 takes that confusion even further because it wraps mass production in a story that sounds old, honest, and handcrafted. Number 4, Costa Coffee, bakery items. Costa isn't a bakery, but it quietly plays one every single day. You grab a coffee, glance at the counter, and add a croissant or slice of banana bread without thinking. It feels incidental, harmless, almost like it doesn't count. That's exactly why it works. Costa's baked goods are not made from scratch in store. They arrive frozen or part-baked from industrial suppliers, then get reheated or finished on site. The ovens are real, the smells are real, but the actual baking happens somewhere else, long before you walked in. What Costa sells is timing, not craftsmanship. The bigger issue is handling. Costa stores are built for speed, morning rushes, long queues, constant movement. Bakery items sit out uncovered for hours, often from early morning until midday or later. Staff juggle drinks, payments, and restocking at the same time, which means baked goods get handled repeatedly and monitored loosely. And because it's just a pastry, standards quietly drop. Customers don't inspect a croissant the way they inspect a meal. If it's dry, you shrug. If it's been sitting since dawn, you rarely know. These items are formulated to survive that environment. Additives and stabilizers help maintain texture and appearance far longer than traditional baked goods should. That doesn't make them illegal, but it does make them far removed from what most people imagine when they think bakery food. Branding does the rest. Warm lighting, wooden shelves, Italian-sounding names. Everything nudges your brain toward trust. Costa doesn't need to trick you. It just benefits from you assuming there's more care involved than there actually is. And if number 4 shows how easily coffee culture normalizes factory bread, number 3 goes further because it actively sells you the idea of craftsmanship. Number 3, artisan, high street chains. This is where bread marketing becomes performance art. High street artisan bread chains love the language. Handcrafted, sourdough, traditional methods, rustic loaves stacked casually, flour dusted just enough to feel authentic. Everything about the shop is designed to whisper patience, skill, and old-world baking. But many of these chains are artisan in name only. Behind the scenes, production is often centralized. Dough is mixed in large facilities, shipped out to stores, and baked or finished on site. Fermentation is shortened. Starters are standardized. Additives step in where time and experience should be doing the work. The loaf looks right, but the process isn't. The word artisan has no strict legal definition. That loophole is exploited constantly. A loaf can be machine mixed, fast fermented, chemically assisted, and still be sold as artisan as long as the branding fits the story. And the story works. Customers pay more. They trust more. They assume quality without asking questions. The rustic aesthetic replaces scrutiny. The real issue is scale. True artisan baking doesn't scale easily. Time can't be rushed without consequences. Fermentation doesn't compress neatly. When chains expand quickly, something has to give. And it's almost always the method. These places aren't necessarily unsafe, but they are misleading. And when people believe bread is better than it is, they stop questioning ingredients, digestion, and long-term quality. The danger isn't one bad loaf. It's long-term trust being misplaced. Because when marketing replaces method, bread stops being food and starts being theatre. And if number 3 shows how powerful a story can be, number 2 is where the shortcuts become impossible to ignore. Number 2, sourdough trend bakeries. Sourdough has become a badge of trust. When you see the word on a window, you assume patience, fermentation, and skill. You imagine days of slow rising, natural starters, and bread that's better for your body because it's made the right way. That assumption is exactly what a lot of modern sourdough trend bakeries rely on. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Not all sourdough is actually sourdough. Many shops selling sourdough use shortcuts that would shock customers if they knew. Commercial yeast added to speed things up, dough conditioners to stabilize texture, extremely short fermentation times that skip most of the benefits people think they're getting. The loaf may contain a starter, but the process is rushed so aggressively that it barely matters. The problem is that sourdough isn't tightly regulated. There's no universal rule for fermentation length or method. That gives bakeries enormous wiggle room to slap the word on bread that looks rustic but behaves like regular fast bread in your body. And because sourdough is trendy, customers don't question it. They assume it's healthier, easier to digest, and worth the higher price. They trust the label instead of the method. Scale makes it worse. True sourdough baking is slow and unpredictable. It doesn't like tight schedules. When bakeries grow popular, pressure builds to produce more loaves, faster. Something has to give. And it's almost always fermentation time. These shops aren't necessarily malicious. They're responding to demand. But the result is bread that wears a healthy identity without earning it. The danger isn't food poisoning. It's misinformation. People eat this bread thinking it's better for them, when in reality it's often just white bread in a crusty disguise. And if number 2 shows how health language can be bent just enough to mislead, number 1 is worse. Because it doesn't just bend the truth, it replaces it entirely. Number 1, gas station and convenience, bakeries. This is the final boss of bread illusion, and it's the one most people never question. Petrol stations and convenience stores selling freshly baked bread and pastries have exploded across the UK. You see ovens behind glass. You smell warm dough the moment you walk in. Signs say baked today or oven fresh, and your brain does the rest. Warm equals fresh. Fresh equals safe. That assumption is exactly what makes this number 1. What's being baked in these places isn't bread in any traditional sense. It's ultra-processed, factory-engineered dough designed to survive freezing, long-distance transport, rapid baking, and extended display times. The ingredients are chosen for shelf life and consistency, not simplicity. Stabilizers, emulsifiers, enzymes, and processing aids do the heavy lifting, not skill or fermentation. Yes, it's baked on site, but only the final step. Everything that actually defines bread has already happened somewhere else, weeks earlier. The environment makes it worse. Convenience stores are not bakeries. They're high-traffic spaces built for speed, fuel sales, and impulse buying. Pastries sit uncovered. Customers lean in. Displays get touched. Staff rotate between tills, deliveries, cleaning, and food handling, often with minimal specialist training. Hygiene relies on systems working perfectly in a space that was never designed for baking. And because the products are cheap, expectations collapse. If it's dry, you shrug. If it tastes artificial, you accept it. Low price becomes a silent excuse for low standards. The smell is deliberate. It's pumped out to trigger trust and hunger before logic kicks in. The oven is a prop. The word baked is the hook. Together, they create the feeling of freshness without any of the substance. This is bread reduced to performance. Number 1 earns its spot because it combines every shortcut on this list. Ultra-processed dough, minimal oversight, high-risk handling environments, and total reliance on illusion. It doesn't just blur the line between baking and manufacturing, it erases it completely. And once you see that, it becomes impossible to unsee how easily the simplest food we have became the easiest one to fake. Now, here's the important part. This isn't about swearing off bread forever or turning every loaf into a trust exercise. It's about knowing which places sell you a story and which ones actually bake. After all the shortcuts, illusions, and half-truths we've just seen, you deserve something simple. Bread made with real methods, real time, and real accountability. So before this turns into everything is fake, let's flip the script. Here are 3 bread shops that actually do it right. Good bread shop 1, Gale's Bakery. Gale's works because it doesn't pretend bread is effortless. Walk into a Gale's and you'll notice something immediately. The menu isn't chaotic. You're not overwhelmed by endless variations and novelty bakes. The focus is narrow, deliberate, and repeatable, which is exactly what good bread needs. Fewer loaves, fewer shortcuts, fewer things that can quietly go wrong. Gale's bakes from scratch on site. Dough is mixed, fermented, shaped, and baked in-house, not shipped in frozen and finished for show. That alone puts it in a completely different category from most high street bakeries. Time does the work here, not additives racing against a clock. What also matters is scale. Gale's has grown, but not so fast that it abandoned its process. Recipes are standardized, yes, but fermentation still exists. Skill still matters. Staff are trained bakers, not just reheaters managing ovens. You'll notice the bread behaves differently. It stales naturally. It tears instead of bouncing back like foam. That's not a flaw. It's proof there's less engineering involved. Is it cheap? No. And that's part of the honesty. Real bread costs more because it takes more time, labor, and attention. Gale's doesn't try to hide that behind gimmicks or stories. The product explains itself. Most importantly, Gale's doesn't rely on illusion. There's no need to pump smells or dress things up as rustic theatre. The bread earns trust through consistency, not performance. And if Gale's shows what happens when process is respected at scale, the next bakery proves what happens when bread is treated as a craft first and a business second. Good bread shop 2, E5 Bakehouse. E5 Bakehouse is the opposite of bread theatre. This is a bakery built around fermentation, sourcing, and restraint. No loud branding, no overpromising, just slow bread made deliberately, even when that limits output. And that limitation is the point. E5 focuses heavily on true sourdough fermentation, long rises, natural starters, grain that's chosen for flavor and digestion, not speed. You don't see endless loaf options because real fermentation doesn't scale neatly, and E5 refuses to fake it. What sets E5 apart is transparency. They talk openly about process, timing, and ingredients. They don't hide behind vague language like artisan style. They explain what they're doing and why it takes time. The bread reflects that honesty. It's complex without being performative, crusty without being tough. It tastes alive because it actually is. And because fermentation is real, many people who struggle with mass-produced bread tolerate this far better. A 5 also respects handling. Bread isn't left sitting forever to fill shelves. When it's gone, it's gone. That alone tells you safety and quality matter more than appearances. This is bread made by bakers who expect you to notice the difference, not ignore it. And if E5 represents the deep end of craft baking, the final shot proves that you can still do things properly while serving real communities at real scale. Good bread shop 3, the Dusty Knuckle. The Dusty Knuckle works because it refuses to separate ethics from baking. This is a bakery built on slow fermentation, proper training, and responsibility, not just to customers, but to the people making the bread. And that matters more than most people realize. Calm, well-run kitchens make safer food. Bread here is mixed, fermented, shaped, and baked with intention. Fermentation isn't rushed. Dough isn't rescued by additives. If something isn't right, it doesn't go out. That discipline shows in the final loaf. The Dusty Knuckle also keeps things simple. You're not distracted by endless novelty products. The focus stays on bread that behaves like bread should, with structure, flavor, and a short ingredient list. Another quiet strength is transparency. They don't romanticize the process or hide behind vague claims. What you see is what you get. Real baking, done properly, without trying to impress people who aren't paying attention. And because production is controlled, handling stays controlled. Bread doesn't sit around endlessly. Standards don't bend just to keep shelves full. The Dusty Knuckle proves something important. When bread is treated as food instead of content, everything improves. Safety, quality, and trust. That's the common thread with all 3 of these shops. They don't rush. They don't fake it. They don't rely on smell, nostalgia, or buzzwords. They let the bread do the talking, and that's really the difference. Bad bread survives on shortcuts, speed, and the hope that you won't look too closely. Good bread survives on time, restraint, and the discipline to do less, not more. Once you understand that, the labels and smells stop working on you. This isn't about becoming a food snob or memorizing ingredient lists. It's about knowing when something is being sold as a story instead of a product. Bread is one of the oldest foods we have. When it needs explaining, something usually went wrong. If this video changed how you look at even one loaf you buy every week, share it with someone who still thinks warm automatically means good. And if you want more videos that make you say, wait, seriously, hit subscribe. This is just the beginning.